The defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche were upset in the first round. What does that mean for the team, and what are their prospects heading into the offseason? Kyle Sullivan of Locked On Avalanche is here to talk about that next on the road to the Stanley Cup. Gil Martin here. The Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup continues as we welcome Kyle Sullivan from Locked On Avalanche to take stock of what went wrong in round one and to preview their offseason. Kyle, thanks so much for being here. What do you think was the biggest reason the Avs were upset in round one by the Kraken?
Injuries, plain and simple. It was something we talked about on the road to the Stanley Cup before the playoffs started, was the injuries so far, what they sustained, how much is left in the gas tank. And there were a couple moments in this playoff series where you could visibly see the gas draining out of this Avalanche team. And with the injuries they sustained and the departure of Val Nichushkin mid-playoffs, I think it was just too much.
Psychologically, how much do you think Gabriel Landeskog's absence hurt this team?
It was definitely felt, especially when the team is down and you're facing a team like Seattle that, let's be honest, they were the better team in this series. They looked incredible, and they knew exactly what to do to Colorado. When you don't have that veteran leadership, it shows in those moments. He did show up for Game 7 at home to kind of hype up the crowd, but his on-ice presence was missed the most.
Was there any player or players who you feel really underperformed for the Avs in this series?
Everyone not named Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Cale Makar. Everyone else, no one showed up. It was they won the Central on depth. You had like Dennis Mulligan having 2-goal games. You had JT Compher looking incredible going into the playoffs. Arturi Lehkonen, he did show up a game or two, but the depth just was kind of frozen in the moment, and you got no help when you needed it most, and it was just the Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen show.
Were there any bright spots from this series that the Avs can take into the summer or maybe even into next season that, just give a little reason for hope?
Well, the series went 7 games, and there wasn't a real blowout game. You weren't embarrassed in any of these games. There were multiple games that were 3-2. My co-host Chris Maselli, he often said in the series, if you score 3 goals, you win this game. And that was the kind of the tone throughout the series. So going into next season, the Avalanche are going to be looking at the depth. They know what does perform and what doesn't perform. And with some big UFAs out there, they need to really evaluate where this team is going. Yes, they won the Cup, but recently this Seattle loss is going to sting for a little bit.
Do you feel losing in the first round renders this season a failure for the Avs, or did the injury sort of mitigate that?
Everybody kind of knew going in the injuries were going to plague this team, and they did, and they showed their ugly head in the playoffs, losing Andre Cogliano, who does not get injured. He's been an Iron Man. He had the Iron Man streak for a while. Like, he is an incredible player. For him to go out as well, it's kind of one of those things you knew it wasn't going to be as successful as last year. I wouldn't consider it a failure, and thankfully Boston being bounced and Toronto advancing are 2 bigger storylines that kind of soften the blow a little bit for Colorado.
Yeah, that always helps, having people pay attention to other things. So as a result of this loss, do you expect any changes this summer to the Avalanche?
Yeah, I expect the depth to be looked at under a microscope. The goalie position is fine. You have some key D-core members, but that bottom 6 will be addressed. It's not going to be a will be. It's going to be. There's going to be some players let go that are a little head scratching, but you cannot repeat with this roster. It's not good enough for where the NHL is going right now.
And who do you think are candidates that, may not be back?
JT Compher, he's one of those names that he performs. He might get overpaid. They might bring him back in. It's one of those, he's been loyal to the team. He's at opportunities, and he's stuck with the team, and the Avs have stuck with JT Compher. Alex Newhook is another name up there that he's also coming up for a deal. You don't know what you're getting out of him. So there are some big names that shone on the Stanley Cup run that might be up there when it comes to free agency.
Yeah, it'll be certainly an interesting offseason. Kyle, thank you so much for doing this. That does it for our Avalanche review here on the Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup. Be sure to subscribe or follow Locked On Avalanche for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.